Welcome to week 3 of Comp 231. You done with 2 weeks? A few more weeks to go. Let me overview week 3 for you. So as you think of this week, first of all, you need to watch this introductory video. And then secondly, I'll be holding a live session on Thursday. So look at your section number and what times your section number will meet. Okay, I'll be going over the 2 chapters that are due this week, chapters 2 and 3. And then I'm asking you to review a few things for the week. One is begin preparing for the Who Am I Really presentation. And so you look at the folder that's entitled Who Am I Really? And you'll see some things that you need to look at in preparation for the very first speech. Second, you need to also look at the requirements for videotaping speeches. Please be sure to peruse this. In light of COVID-19, the audience requirement has been removed, so don't worry about having an audience. But again, may I suggest that if you do have some family members at home, it would be great for them to be part of your audience. It's much easier speaking to a live audience than just trying to speak to a camera. So try to simulate what would normally be a speaking environment, a speaking situation where you do have a live audience. Cool. So chapters 2 and 3 are due for this week. And so please be sure to look at chapter 2. Chapter 2 deals largely with the ethics of public speaking. And there are certain guidelines for speaking ethically. I'll speak more about this on Thursday. In the meanwhile, let me just remind you that it's about protecting your credibility. It's about entering into dialogue rather than monologue. And it's also about standing by 4 principles of ethical speech. 1 is the kind of research that you do. 2 is the search for justice. 3 is the public motivation. And then 4 is a respect for dissent. And then it's also about protecting the common good and speaking truthfully. So we'll look more on that on Thursday as we talk about chapter 2. Chapter 3, on the other hand, talks about being audience-centered. Part of the key dynamic between a speaker and the audience that he or she is speaking to is that the audience you need to know something about that audience, who they are, what makes them unique so that you can connect with them. So any speech that you give has to be audience-centered. It's not like being able to take a presentation and go from one audience to the next and give the exact same presentation. It just doesn't work that way. So you need to do some audience analysis, who they are in terms of demographics, who they are in terms of psychographics, and that is their behaviors, their attitudes, their beliefs, their values. And so we'll talk again more about chapter 3 when we meet on Thursday. Then as you look at the rest of the week, you need 2 quizzes. 2 quizzes need to be taken. One is on chapter 2 and the other one is on chapter 3. The chapter 2 quiz is due on Thursday and the chapter 3 quiz is due on Sunday. The big thing for the week is your draft outline for the Who Am I Really presentation. So as you think of the Who Am I Really presentation, this is the first presentation that I'm requiring you to do. What is it? It is a 5 to 7 minute speech of self-disclosure. There's the key word, self-disclosure, in which you describe the real you. So you think of self-disclosure. What is self-disclosure? Self-disclosure is intentional. You want to share something about who you are. Secondly, self-disclosure is significant. So there are some things that I can tell about you by looking at you. Therefore, if you tell me about those things, that's not self-disclosure. And thirdly, self-disclosure is also something that's not obvious, as I just said. Let me go back to the second point, and that is self-disclosure is significant. As much as you're comfortable with in the context of this audience, and of course it's being videotaped, please share something significant about who you are. This speech is not a speech that is designed to tell us a little bit about what I do. It's not a what I do speech. It's not really about the fact that I'm a student or I play basketball, and those are important things that do describe something about who you are. What you need to do is go beyond these roles and activities that you engage in and tell us, how do these roles and activities shape you into the person that you are today? What I have found in the years that I've taught public speaking is that the people that are most comfortable with who they are, they've had a chance to look back over their lives and come to terms with the experiences and the relationships that have shaped them and made them into the person who they are today. Those individuals who are comfortable with their sense of self become the most competent communicators. All right? So you need to take a long look inside, look back, and then decide what you want to share about who you are. And the best way to accomplish this is through the use of stories. So, in a normal speech, you'd have 2 to 4 main points, usually 2 to 3, 4 maybe too many, given the fact that it's only a 5 to 7 minute speech. And what I'm asking you to do really is to think about maybe 3 events or 3 relationships and weave those into stories that describe who you are. So don't be surface level. I'm also asking you to use an analogy, and it works well this way. Very often, if I don't ask you to use an analogy with my students, what I find is that they use a chronological, kind of a sequencing, a time way of organizing their main points, and it goes from elementary school to middle school to high school, and here I am now at Wake Tech, and that's not the most creative way to develop this presentation. So use an analogy, use a metaphor, compare yourself to something, a box of chocolates, a rock, a rainbow, a plant. But don't stay with the metaphor, meaning that don't tell us so much about the metaphor that you don't tell us anything about yourself. That's been the problem that I've experienced in the past, where students get so wrapped up in the metaphor that they don't use it as a platform, a jumping off point to tell us more about themselves. At the end of the day, you want to tell us who you are. I think Plato said it best when he said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." So this is a speech in which you take a deep, long look inside. So how do you go about the process? Well, if you go to your blackboard and you look at, let's see, just below lesson 6, oh, forgive me, step 6, not lesson 6, but step 6, it says prepare for the Who Am I Really speech. And I have a TED Talk in step 6, which is about storytelling and the power of telling your story. There is something amazing when you are able to articulate your story, who you are, because what you bring to the speaking situation is your uniqueness, what's made you and shaped you into the person that you are today. And that helps to connect with the audience. Speeches, by and large, are not just about disseminating information. Speech is about connecting with the audience. And when you tell a story or a series of stories, you connect strongly and powerfully with the audience. So if you look below step 6, you'll see it's a link that says first speech, Who Am I Really? If you click on that, it will open up and it will show you, first of all, the instructions for the speech. Secondly, a template for all speeches, and please use the template. All you have to do is to input your information into that, and the template tells you the purpose and function of each part of the outline all the way through. Thirdly, there's a grading rubric, so you know exactly how I'm going to grade your presentation when you give it in a couple of weeks. And then I have a series of sample outlines from some of my students in the past who have allowed me to use their outlines. Okay, so by Sunday, you need to put together a draft outline and submit it on Sunday evening. Please, it's important that you do this because I will look at those draft outlines and I will give you some feedback. Trust you'll have an awesome week. Thank you again for all that you're doing in this course, and keep safe. Have a good week.